Hello and welcome to Janet's Craft Corner. I'm Janet and today we are going to make our Easter Bunny picket fence door hanger. This is such a cute Easter project and it really only takes about 45 minutes. So gather your general supplies. While you're doing that, this is also a great time to subscribe to our channel so that you make sure that you get notification of all of our videos as we release them. In addition to your regular supplies, you always need your wood cutouts and the paints that you want for this individual project. If you purchased a project kit, those paints are all in your kit. Otherwise, you need to gather them together before we start. Okay, so we're going to start out by putting all of our pieces, getting all of our pieces out of the envelopes. And then a trick that I've learned is to help hold pieces while you're painting on them is to use masking or painter's tape and put it upside down on cardboard. And so this is the lid to my box that I've cut off, and then I'm just going to take painter's tape and roll my ends under so it'll stick to the cardboard, and the sticky side is up. And I'm going to put, I think I'll do 3 pieces on here to stabilize things with, and then we're going to lay our pieces on. So we're going to sort them by color so that they're all where we want them, and then we'll get started painting. If you've bought the project kit, then your paints are going to be a little different than mine because I'm painting mine a little bit different colors today, but I will tell you as we go what colors you should be using so that you know for sure if you're painting it with the project kit. If you're painting it with your own colors, then obviously you get to make your choices. This one is one that doesn't have lots of colors in it, but it does have a couple. Okay, so we've got our strips of masking tape down, and then we're just going to take our pieces and we're going to sort them. And the ones that are most important to have on the cardboard are the ones that are anything we're going to use the sponges for, so letters, and then any really small pieces. So that's going to be white. This is also going to be white. And if you look at them, you can tell the side that's the right side by the amount of burn marks on it. The correct side will not have as many burn marks on it. That's white. And then this guy is also white. And then this guy is green. And this guy is going to be, with yours, this guy is, if you've got the project kit, it's lavender. If you're doing your own at whatever color you want it to be. And I think I'm doing mine bright blue. And then this is, in your kit, is a tealy blue color. And because of the size of it, it doesn't really need to be on the cardboard. Although if we rearrange a little, I could probably get it on here. Okay, so, and then these 2 pieces are spacers. So you don't need them at all as when you're painting. You'll need them when you're gluing. And then of course our big piece, which is where we're going to start. So we're going to set these guys off to the side for a moment, and we're going to start with the big piece, and we're going to start with our gray. And this piece, you want to keep the lines that go across. Those ones you definitely want to be able to see well. The rest of them, you just need to be able to kind of glimpse because they're just for placement. So you don't have to worry too much about the ability to do that. If you've got an X-acto knife, I'll tell you right now, it'll make your life a little easier here in a minute. So we're going to start here, and we're going to load our brush up with a little bit of paint. And basically, I'm just going to paint each one of these. My brush is a 1-inch brush. These are just a little over 1 inch. So I'm painting straight up these as I go. Try hard not to paint too much in that. Use my brush to clean it out a little bit. And you'll notice I'm not worried at all about my scorings because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to make that not a problem. You do want, if you're painting anything, if you paint off the end of your thing, then it's better than if you paint onto the edge of your wood, because I just painted onto the edge of that wood, and you'll notice I made a mess. I got a little lip of paint on the outside edge there, and so I'm going to clean that off before it dries so I don't have to do trim work. So you want to try as much as possible to paint off the edge of your paint rather than off the edge of your wood rather than onto the edge of your wood. That's hard here in the middle on these pickets. And so again, I'm going to use, and I'm just going to do them all at once, but I'm going to do a couple of these just to show you what we're going to do. Use my wet wipe and go between the two pickets down here. Maybe it's not cooperating very well. And kind of just come up there and pull it through to get that little glob that forms. Where I am brush across that edge, rubbing onto my board rather than off of my board. And make sure you don't get any too thick globs like I had there. So we're going to go ahead and finish painting this out. Unless you're a really neat painter, make sure you've got some sort of parchment paper or newspaper, although newspaper is not great because you'll get print on it, but some sort of paper down that you can keep from making a mess on your table. I use parchment paper. I buy mine in big sheets, but you can use it off the roll too. Just from the kitchen, your same stuff as you use in your kitchen. And your coverage is not real super important on this right now because we're going to put 2 coats on it. Getting enough coverage with 1 coat, just no matter how many times I tried, I couldn't. And so go back and get it between any of these that you've got to build up where you think you need to. Some of them you're not going to get, but most of that's going to be hidden underneath other pieces when we're done. Okay, so we're going to set that aside while it dries. We're just going to lay our brush here because we're going to come back to that here in just a few seconds. Well, you may have to rinse your brush if the only thing you have is the project kit. But we're going to do our bunny next, and I am going to just get me another brush, and I'm using a bright pink for my bunny. I decided I wanted to do something different. But you should, if you have the project kit, you have a teal blue. That's what the blue is for. So I'm going to use my bright pink. And again, remember what I said about trying to go off the edge of your wood. So try to go off the edge of your wood as much as possible. It's hard up here, especially on the ears, but try that as much as possible to go off the edge of your wood rather than onto the edge of your wood. And that'll keep you from having a mess on your sides. Because this one is going to be underneath the lattice work, I think I can get away with just 1 coat of this. And I'm going to try that. So just so you know, I'm going to try to get away with 1 coat. So make sure you put on a decent coat when you're doing it, if you're going to try to do that, if you're going to try to get away with the 1 coat. If you want, you can do 2 coats to have a better coverage underneath there. But like I said, it's going to be fully covered by the lattice work, so it's not really, doesn't have to be, I guess, perfect would be the way I would say this. So it doesn't have to be perfect. So just, I've already noticed I'm bad about pulling off the edge of the screen here. I apologize for that, but I'm trying my best not to do it. It's just harder to paint when you're reaching out than when you've got it up closer to your body. Okay, so that guy's painted, and we're going to go ahead and put that in the water because I'm going to not do another coat of that. On our white, we are going to use a special technique to keep our little holes clear and to help show our stitching so that we don't have to try to clear that all. So, ooh, speaking of clearing that, I forgot something over here on the... You're done painting each coat. Not good here. You should take and go across them, the break between the two, the lines around the supports, I guess. You want to take an X-acto knife and go down them to clear them out, and it usually will ride pretty much down along them dropping off between those two areas. You want to clean them out as much as you can. And then just do each of the 4 of them. You want to do this between each coat so that you don't get paint buildup down in there, because you do want that to try to show. You want to be able to, you want it to show that you have a crossbar there, and when we do our whitewashing or distressing, whatever you want to call it, we'll actually highlight that a little bit. Clear those out as much as you can. And this can be done while the paint's still wet. It actually works a little better while the paint's still wet, and my paint's not too dry here. If you don't have an X-acto knife, what you can try to do is paint so that you don't cover these. And that's hard to do because you're going to have to paint between, you have to paint across. It's harder to do on this one than it is on a lot of them. You have to paint across these supports and then down from this one and up from this one to try to not cover those, to try to leave those clear as much as possible. So having that X-acto knife, or you know, a toothpick will work. Something, anything, a pen, straight pen, anything that can slide down into that crack and clear it is helpful. Okay, now then back to our white. Back on this before we stab ourselves. Okay, so we're gonna get our white out, and I'm gonna put it out here kind of in the middle. Sounds like mine's about empty. Okay. I'm not using a brush on my white. I'm actually using my sponges. And you can save money by taking save, I don't know, I guess money, by cutting between your sponges, cutting them this way so that they're smaller, and you can actually go as far as cutting this way and get 4 uses out of each one if you want. But because of the big areas, I'm going to use my whole sponge for this. And you're going to dip your sponge in your paint and then do a lot of tapping it off over here, because the idea to keep, especially when you're doing like the bunny with the stitching, is that the less paint and the less pressure, then the more your engraved lines will show through. As you can see, I'm just really light paint, really light pressure. And I'll hold this up as close to the camera as I can get it so you can see that you can still see my stitching lines. Okay, see that? See those stitching lines? So you're just going to continue doing this all around your bunny. And you're also going to use the same method. And see, like I do in the middle first and then come out to my lines to make sure that I get as little paint as possible out here on these edges where I've got stitching. And you basically are going to go over it a couple of times to get the darkness that you need. But as long as each time is not a very thick coat, you'll be fine. You'll keep those stitches showing. If you should cover up a stitch, you can use your X-acto knife to try to open it up. But now then, on these you don't need quite as light a touch, but you're going to do the same thing on the bunny, the lattice work. It's so much easier than trying to paint each of those little pieces. Like you'll see, you don't need as much paint as you think you do. I'm going to end up with a lot of extra wasted paint there, although I'll probably just paint something else this morning that uses it up. That's what I tend to do. But if you took your sponges and cut them in half, you can just dip them in your pot if you have the project kit, those little pots, and then tap them out on your palette paper. Okay, so we'll get that one covered with our first coat. And again, keep your coats light. It's better to keep light coats and have to do multiple coats than to try to do one thick coat. And then we'll do our lettering, we do the same thing. And this will keep also from having too much buildup in the little curves of our letters, because when you paint with a brush, it's really hard not to get that buildup. Keep it light, keep it bouncy. Light pressure, light paint makes it the neatest you can possibly get it. Okay, so we've got a coat on all of that, and we're going to go back to our gray and put a coat, before our brush dries out too much, put another coat on this. It should be dry. If you need to dry it with a hair dryer or a heat gun, you can, or just wait a little bit longer and put another coat on this. And this coat we're going to be a little more careful with, because this is our final coat and we want to get a good coverage, get better coverage than we got last time, I guess. So I'm going to take it a little slower, but not a lot, because by doing the 2 coats, you're going to get really good coverage. And you know, I paint pretty quickly, but if you can't keep up, just pause the video and then pick it back up once you catch up. It's not a big deal. It's one of the beauties of having the videos to go off of, because you don't have to do it at my pace. You can stop and start as many times as you want. If you don't have brushes and all you had was your project kit, you can just rinse your brush out between colors, and it's, you know, not a big deal. I'm going to do that with the pink here in a minute to do the grass, but if you've got an extra brush, obviously, like I just did with my gray, you can keep from rinsing it out between the 2 coats, because you don't need it. Or you can also wait and do 2 coats of this before you worry about painting your bunny or painting anything else. You don't have to do them in the order I do them. I do them in this order to get them dry for assembly, or for another coat if that's the case. Keep my project moving along. So I tend to jump around between colors as they dry and come back to them, touch them up, etc. So there I have my fence painted well. I'm going to do again, clear out my engrave mark that goes between these 2. There we go. Usually once you get it started, it's not hard, but sometimes finding that edge is not easy. And this is also, the X-acto knife works well for cleaning those little crevices out where if you got too much paint in them, you got a little glob of paint in that little crevice there between pickets. You can use your X-acto knife to clean that out a little bit. And this is a really good example. If you went straight up your pickets like I did, you'll notice that you don't have any problem with globs of paint between pickets on the upper side of your pickets, but you do have on the lower side. And that's because, as I said, your brush was coming onto the wood on that lower side versus off the wood on that upper side. If you can't find your edge on one side, then find it on the other and come backwards at it. Especially on that very first one, I couldn't find my edge on that outside edge, but on the inside edge it was pretty easy to find because it's right there along the top of that cut. You will notice I'm trying hard to keep my fingers off the board so I don't get fingerprints in the wet paint. Kind of an important thing. Okay, we're going to set that aside and let it dry another between that neck before we do the last thing on it. But while it's drying, we're going to do a couple things over here. So we're going to clean out one of our brushes here. A piece of paper towel. Put our cap on our X-acto knife before we stab ourselves. Yes, I have stabbed myself with my X-acto knife before while it was just laying open on my table. Be careful of that. Okay, so I cleaned my brush out. Actually, I'm going to get the other one. I grabbed the one that was the gray, as you can tell by the thing. See, this one doesn't have any paint on it. Okay, and then for our grass, we're going to use our green. Obviously, green grass. Don't need a whole lot of that. There's not a lot of grass here to paint. And again, we're going to try our, let's go off the edges rather than onto our edges, even though that's really hard on some of these pieces. But I do tend to go up them. So I have to be careful on the edges, along this bottom edge, that I'm not. And just, if you get some on the sides, it's not a big deal. Some people actually choose to paint their sides. To me, that's not worth the effort. I tend to be a quick and easy crafter. I like things that are quick and easy. I don't like to spend gobs of time on one thing. I think that's called ADD. But, and then again, I saw that I'm pulling off of my board rather than onto my board. I did my bottom separate from my top. This will probably need 2 coats, so there's the first light coat, and I'm just going to lay my brush aside. It should be fine for a minute. The little bow, I'm doing mine in a bright blue because I decided to go with brighter colors on this one rather than the pastels, but you can do yours in, if you got the kit, yours is in the lavender. And I'm going to take one of my little pieces of sponge, and again I'm going to do the dip in and make it light on the top on there because there's stitching on our bow that I want to keep as much as possible. So keep my paint light and keep my pressure light. And this little bow doesn't take very long at all. There we go. There's fungicide. We'll probably come back and do that. And then we're going to do our white again. And basically I'm just going to repeat everything we did earlier. So do our little guy here. But remember, you still have to keep your paint light and your pressure light to keep your stitching lines showing through. I am trying to follow a pattern as I do this lattice work, so I make sure I get all of it done, but you can choose your own pattern. I just chose to go down one of these and then out from each of it, on each side of it, to make sure I got it, each one of them. But you can choose your own pattern. And then last but not least, we're going to get our Happy Easter over here. And look at all of them, make sure you think you've got them covered as much as you want. Obviously go back over any areas where you don't feel like it's covered enough. But again, make sure you're keeping light pressure, light paint. And I may end up doing the entire lattice work again here in a minute. Letting it dry between coats helps because it doesn't end up moving the paint that you already put on, but rather applying a new coat of paint. If you don't let it dry, or at least get tacky between coats, you'll just move what you did. Okay, so now we're going to start doing some tricks. Well, we're going to keep, let's paint our green again one more time, and then before we start doing our tricks. One of the great things about acrylic paint is it dries very, very quickly, especially if you do light coats. You're always better off doing multiple light coats than trying to do one thick coat with acrylic paint. It does a much better job of coverage and a much better job of not giving you globs and streaks. So there we've got our grass, then an extra coat on our grass. And then we're going to do the same thing with our bow. We're going to do an extra coat on our bow. I don't know if I like the bright blue bow, but it'll work. And I don't know, you can't tell, but I got a little too much pink there, and I could tell as I did it on that edge before I got to the stitching that I had too much, so I went up back over to my tray and blotted a little more. It's getting better. It may need another coat for that. And I did, on my pink, I did kind of go a little thick on my coat, so I do not need another coat since that lattice work is going to go over it. Okay, we're going to set all of this off to the side. We're going to put our brush in our water. And we're going to get our Picket back over here. And now we're going to start having fun. Okay, you can dry brush this. That is one way of doing it. But I don't like that way. I'm not good at dry brushing. So I have found another trick. If you don't want to dry brush, but you still want the idea of a whitewashed Picket, kind of a weathered Picket, you can leave it like this if you want. But if you want a weathered Picket, then you can use a wet wipe. And I showed you, I don't know if you could tell, you definitely probably couldn't tell. Off to the side, I kind of shook it out. And then dip it in your paint and just streak it. I got a little thick there, but use your wipe to. And I'm trying right now to start at the line and streak down. And so start at my line and streak down. And then I'm coming back over it because it's a little thick. I don't want it quite that thick down. And I'm also starting down here so I can get good at it, because each time I'll have to take a little bit longer to remember exactly how much paint I put on it. But you get streakies. So then I'm going to start in the middle here and go out to the edge and out to the edge. I'm going to try not to get on the crossbar too much. I mean, you're not going to be able to do it completely without getting on the crossbar. But I don't want to get it too much on the crossbar. And again, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to use my side where it's a little drier. Or it has no paint on it, I guess. It has less paint on it. And kind of streak it up like this. Then I'm going to do my crossbars. And I'm going to go. And this one happens to be the last wipe in the package. And it's very wet. And that's part of why I'm getting the bubbles. And so kind of trying to get rid of some of those bubbles because I don't want the dots. So you do want your wet wipe to be a little on the dry side, and mine's not really. But then I'm going to streak across this. May have to come back and do this one because I didn't do the top yet. And then I'm going to streak my top. And there we go. Sort of distressed. The bottom's not looking real great, but it's okay. It's going to be covered up. I had too much liquid on my wet wipe. This method can also be used for adding texture to something. So I'm going to actually use it on my grass, but I'm going to use the dark gray because the grass kind of looks dead right now. I mean, there's just nothing to it. So I'm going to use the dark gray, and I'm not going to use very much at all. Maybe just a very little bit on here, and just add some little, and I got too much gray on it. But I'm trying to add some little streaks up. So I'm going to add them up. I should have cleaned it a little more before I did it, but that's okay. And then I'm going to take a clean spot on my wet wipe and wipe up on them so that I don't get, it's not as heavy. It's thick and heavy as it was. And again, come off the bottom too. And that gives that just a little more texture. Not a lot. I don't know how well the camera is going to pick that up if I tilt it enough. Not a lot, but a little more texture. Another thing you can do if you want is mix a little bit of gray in with your green so you darken it up, and then kind of put some streaks on it, but I'm not going to do that. So that's all of our painting. Double check, make sure you don't have anything you want to paint further, and we're going to start assembling. I use two different kinds of paint when I glue when I assemble. I use this Gorilla. We'll turn it around this way. Gorilla Glue Super Glue Gel. That I really like. And then I also use, and it's not here, it's glitter art from Magic, and if you go to my website you can get a link. And that's what I'm going to use today. I kind of like it better. Just because I'm allergic to the glue, and so it'll burn, the super glue will burn on me. Causes my fingers to burn. Okay, you can see you've still got a little bit of the outlines for where they're going to place things. So you're just going to kind of put some glue on the back. If you're using the super glue, you don't need near as much glue. You know, it doesn't need to be spread as much as this does. But put some glue on the back. Put it in place where you want it. If you don't want it where I was putting them, where the little cutouts are, then just paint heavier so that you can't see the cutouts. Hold it there for a few seconds, and I always get too much glue, it comes out the edges, but this glue dries completely clear without any additional, without any glare or anything. And then we're going to do our grass. And then our words. And that's the bottom layer, so to say. Again, you should be able to see your cuts a little to line it up, but it's not a big deal if you don't get it perfectly lined up, because those cuts are very hard to see. And stick it on there. Now we're going to take our little bunny and we're going to put our bow on him. And then the lattice work bunny we're going to put on top of our painted bunny, and this is where you got to get a little thinner with your, like I said, you don't need very much glue. I use way too much, my husband tells me. He's constantly telling me I'm using way too much glue, but I don't like things popping off, so I use a little extra. If you're using the super glue, you do want to be really careful here because it's not as thin a tip, and so it's a little harder to get on here and not have a mess. You definitely don't need to go all the way around your edges if you're using the super glue. Okay. And then we're going to take it and place it over the top of our bunny, and it's already on there. In your case, a teal bunny, or whatever color you decided to paint it. In my case, a pretty pink, bright pink bunny. I think that's turning out cute. Put it right there, and you know, this wonderful thing about this glue is it will give you the grace to slide it around a little bit once you get it on there before it sticks, but yet it sticks in about 30 seconds. Okay, and then remember those two spacers? This is where they're going to come in. Okay, we're going to decide where we want our little bunny, and I'm going to do him over a little further today than I usually do him. Or maybe I'll do him there. And I'm going to slide a spacer in underneath him because this is taller than he is. Right there's where I want to do it, so I'm going to pick him up. My spacer's still down so I can see where I'm going to do it. Put it in place. I want to make sure he sticks good to the spacer, so I'm going to put some glue there, and then I'm going to put glue around my edges again on him, just like I did on the big bunny. And then put him back down so that he's sitting there on that spacer, and I need to slide my spacer up just a little bit. I got it too low. So he's sitting there on that spacer. There. You've got two spacers, so you can use them however you want, you know, wherever you need. I'm only using one of them the way I'm doing it here. but if you need, you can slide one under there. Not make him out overlap onto this one, but rather overlap onto that one. The green grass. I just wanted him overlapping a little bit on both places, so hold him down for a few seconds, and then we're done. All you need to do now is use your twine, tie it through your holes, and you're all set, and he's ready to go up for Easter. Wasn't that simple and easy? But there he is. It's all done. That was a lot of fun and didn't take us very long at all. Only about 45 minutes, so not too bad. Nice little craft that you got made in a very short period of time. Usually, most of my crafts I can do in about an hour. I had a lot of paint there. So there you go. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you know when we have new videos coming out, and check out our full blog post on instructions for this specific project.